Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to Decoding Digital. I'm Kunle Campbell, I'm director at Door4, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our July show, part of our series of Decoding Digital webinars, content and interviews. Door4 are a performance marketing agency. We work with dozens of performance marketing and e-commerce businesses across the UK, Europe and the US. And today I'm delighted to have three fantastic speakers, all experts in their own fields. We have Kunle Campbell, international speaker and e-commerce consultant, host of the fantastic 2x e-commerce podcast that many of you may have seen. We have Pritchard, the CEO and founder of Shopit, an e-commerce platform for growing businesses. And we have our very own Lisa Appleby, our optimization consultant, who today will be talking to you about customer intent. So today's event is the laws of attraction. Our theme is PPC, SEO, general reach strategy. Three very different presentations by three expert speakers and people that I think are going to give you a superb show this morning. A quick note about running order, how we operate Decoding Digital. We'll have our three speakers, each of which will be 15 to 20 minutes each. During that show, we invite you to use the Q&A facility that you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom window. This, for those of you watching on Zoom, those of you watching on Facebook Live, you're welcome to put comments in the Facebook page and we'll try to get these to our speakers at the end. We'll ask the questions at the end of our third speaker today, so please make sure if there's anything that you want to ask, any challenge that you want to drop in there, that you do so. The show will be running for around about an hour this morning until around about 11 o'clock, so it shouldn't take up too much of your morning. I'm going to start by handing over to our first speaker this morning, Pritchard from Shopit. Adam, do you want to join us on screen? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for joining us this morning, Adam. How are you feeling?
Not too bad for a Friday. Decent.
Superb. We like it. That's why we do Decoding Digital on a Friday. So Adam is the CEO and founder of Shopit, an e-commerce platform that I'm sure we can tell you a little bit about this morning. He's an expert in e-commerce and marketing with a varied e-commerce and marketing background, so understands the whole gamut of performance for e-commerce brands. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Leon, and pleasure to be helping out today. Let me get my technicals out of the way first of all. So let me endeavour to share my screen. Please do mention in chat if anything's running a little bit slow. Yeah, my internet connection's a wonderful little challenge for me. Right, 1 second. Right, that's the screen being shared. We'll just let it go in. So yes, I'll just introduce myself. As Leon said, my name's Pritchard. I founded Shopit. We're a multi-site e-commerce platform in the same space as the likes of Shopify, but we offer some very, very different things. So hopefully you can all see the slides well and good. So topic of my talk today is tripling your sales audience on a tight budget, a challenge that nearly every company has. No matter whether you're a startup, whether you're a growing brand or a manufacturer, whatever, reseller, or whether you're a huge business, everyone's got a tight budget. That's all I've ever heard for the last 20 years being in digital. This could also have been called How Rome Should Have Been Built in a Day. So let's begin. So the tie-in topic for today was the laws of attraction. Now, I've read the book a little bit, bits of it. I've read plenty of reviews of it, etc. And it's obviously about trying to present yourself in such a way that you draw in the exact kind of people that you want to draw in. I was looking at this and tried to think in terms of this, what it would mean to me and what it would mean to the presentation. And it is about your customer and the supplier being one with each other, being absolutely perfect and a match made in heaven. For me, the word that came to mind was tessellation. It's a word I love, and it's one of those beautiful moments when things just work, things just fit perfectly. Life just feels like the world's just come round and everything's going great. I love the Snickers bar shop there. That really pleases my sensibilities to see that it's almost like it's been made for it, and that's certainly how customers want to see their suppliers, their sellers operate. You want to feel loved, a bit like the cats. So Yes, I believe there is great satisfaction. I certainly take great satisfaction when things come together so perfectly in life, but unfortunately,
okay.
That
All right, thank you, Chase.
Yep, Kunle's in. That is not always the case, and we need to ask the question of why. Come on. Oh, go that one. Keyboard catching up. Come on, back again. Okay. So to start off with this, there was a fantastic TED talk done around 2005, 2006 by a guy called Barry Schwartz. Early days of TED Talks, and he had a belief, a theory called the paradox of choice. He started his talk explaining that in order to maximize the welfare or happiness of people, we need to maximize their individual freedom. And in order to maximize their individual freedom, we need to give people the maximized level of choice, whether that's in shopping, whether that's in things to do at the weekend, whatever. If people have freedom and choice, they're going to be far happier. And he said that this idiom was so deeply indoctrinated or intrinsic in our thinking that it'd never really been questioned. But obviously Barry set out to question that and how it produces this paradox of choice. First example he comes up with is when he went into his American supermarket nearby and he was presented with 285 different varieties of cookies, 75 different iced teas. And this is America all over, isn't it, really? 230 soups and so on and so forth. And what that made him feel as an individual was an incredible sense of overload, of strain, of having to try and decide, make a decision when he was being bombarded by loads of different options. He felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to try and get his choice right. What if he got it wrong and he's wasted his money, etc. And ultimately, he often got to a point of analysis paralysis. One of the examples he then coins is a comparison to how doctors and parents operate. When a doctor has a number of different remedies, care plans, etc., to offer a patient, they don't come in with 14, 15, 20 different plans. They come and they decide themselves, they make an informed choice, and they come to their patient and they give them one or two choices. It's the same with a lot of parenting tactics as well. You don't want to overload your child with options for their future or options for the weekend, etc. You give them one or two choices because then you can get on with your life. So I want you guys to ask yourself today, how often have you sat on your laptop, sat on your mobile phone at the dinner table, on the sofa, looking for something like a holiday, but you've given up? You've deferred it till tomorrow because you just simply can't make that decision right now. I know from my experience, me and my wife take, weeks sometimes to come up, certainly on the holiday point of view, but it matters in smaller sales as well. How many web sessions does it take you to choose that new dress that you want to buy, to choose that phone when you're comparing all the different features, etc., to choose that birthday present for your mother, for your sister? How many sessions does it take? Because you simply can't quite make a decision today. So, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. So the suggestion here is that if we offer too much choice, we are overloading the user and it becomes far too difficult to make that choice. It actually becomes harder to convert your user. So going back to the sales curve, we're talking about how to triple your sales. Well, this is what a typical scenario is that I've seen from running an agency, working for another big agency, helping customers out as well. You start off by adding your products and getting your site launched. You decide that you need to do some SEO, which obviously takes a little bit of time, costs a bit of money. And then you decide to do a bit of paid ads because you need to ramp up your sales. And you get to a point where your sales are increasing. Absolutely, people are doing it right. But what if I added a few more products? What if I added another couple of ranges so that I can get more traffic to the site, and maybe they'll start building a basket of 2-3 items, etc. And like I said, your sales do go up. I'm not disputing that. But how does e-commerce fare overall? So we've got a scenario where the owner of the company and the drivers in the company want to increase sales. They want to hit that triple level. Well, I know, because I've heard this plenty of times, this is what many of you are thinking right now. You go, hold on a minute. Amazon are successful. Amazon have got 20 million products and they're doing all right for themselves. They have added absolutely everything. They're making sure that they can capture the interest of every single customer going. But you're not Amazon. You've not been going for 20 odd years. You've not got hundreds of thousands of staff. You've not got the buying power of Amazon to be able to get wonderful discounts and offer them out. You've not got an app that's been downloaded by tens of millions of people. You have to understand your position and say, well, how can I grow? How can I succeed? And I will show you some case studies later to prove that it can be done. Obviously, customers can often associate higher variety with higher quality. If there's a company that has got the buying power to be able to get all these different products in, they must be doing something right. So the products are probably therefore good quality. And you want to, as a business, align yourselves as that kind of seller. Well, it's fair. It's a good strategy. Whether it's the only strategy, we shall see. So you start building your website. You start deciding to add in new products and your categories suddenly explode. Your content manager decides to add loads of different categories to the website. Come on, there we go. Split out all the men's and women's and kids products and then start developing a bunch of new collections. Start focusing on fair trade items. Start focusing on rainwear for different weather conditions. But let me remind you, these are decisions that you're making without necessarily speaking to your customer. I want to drive people to the fair trade items because I think they'll sell well. We're pretty profitable. That's not necessarily what your customer's looking for, or your different types of customers. So if my spacebar wants to work on this one. The web developer response says, no, don't worry. We've got 1,000 products in this category. We'll do faceted navigational filters. We'll do product filters. We'll give people loads of options down the side to choose the color, to choose the size, to choose the brand, to choose the price, and look at that, off the pot, they've got their perfect results. But the risk there is obviously, first of all, you're asking the user to make all the effort. You're also hoping that the search results are going to come out right with the right kind of products that you want to sell. And I can guarantee there are very, very, very few brands that have actually tried and tested all those filters. And you often see sometimes on websites where there's loads of either or filters. The most annoying thing for me, you can look at things that are priced £0 to £20 or £20 to £40. Well, actually, mate, I want to look at things that are priced 15 to 25 because that's my budget range and you're not letting me. You're giving me too many options. You're annoying me. But this is certainly a way to deal with allowing the customer to refine their choices. The next person that comes along is the e-commerce manager. They see that this website developer and content manager has done some fantastic jobs and they start getting really technical from their experience. They go, look, I've got some great ideas. We'll drop some cookies. We'll start presenting, when the person comes back to the website, we'll start presenting them with the products that they want to see, that they've looked at before. Brilliant. Somebody else comes along, but that in itself can be quite expensive and hard to do from a web development point of view. Some people come along and go, well, the product that's in number 6 position on that category, we know that that's our best profitable and a really good seller. Let's move it to position 2, which our eye tracking software says is brilliant. Right, great. Another strategy to do. Got to put someone to work on that. Somebody else comes along or a third-party partner comes along and says, let's improve your site search. Let's do loads of search suggestions. Let's put some hard-coded links in to go to fair trade white t-shirts. Let's drive people down that avenue. But again, that's the product owner making that decision, not the customer. I don't want to see fair trade white t-shirts. I come here for a pair of shoes. So that stuff suddenly becomes irrelevant and confusing and starts taking my mind off what I'm trying to do. So you start putting loads of offers in, calls to actions in to try and drive that. And again, I will stress, these are all great strategies and techniques that you'll find the bigger the business you are and you start taking these on, number 1, your costs are going up, and number 2, your complexity is going up. So along comes the SEO guy, along comes the marketing manager, and she says, I've got experience in this for 15 years doing this role as part of my job. And you start to say, well, hold on a minute, it's great, but Google's actually struggling to define the site. We've not long launched. We've given it 25 different product ranges to look at. It kind of in the early days wants to see that you're a hat specialist or a shoe specialist or a computer specialist or whatever. It's struggling to define the site. So we're not quite getting those results that we want. The campaigns that we're running, the pay-per-click campaigns, the AdWords campaigns, all the quality scores, the landing page definition that you can do. Hopefully I'm talking to people today who understand some of this. If not, believe me, these are conversations that your agency will have with you. But all of that just becomes a lot more hard work. Again, landing me on a page of men's size 8 black shoes, if you're then showing me loads of banners and loads of category drop downs with loads of other products in, you're distracting me. Ultimately, this can lead to lower conversion rates, which I'll show you in a second. And that starts to test the relationship between the e-commerce company and the SEO company or employee or what have you, because the stats aren't quite there that the MD wants. You start coming up with other tactics of having blog articles or banners or calls to action, and you start realizing your website's not actually that big. That shoving loads and loads more content in it to try and get your SEO results or drop people on the right page, it becomes a big struggle. So the suggestion, what we're finding here is that if on an e-commerce website, we are offering people so many options, so many different features to use, to look at, to take in, and to ultimately understand. Well, again, we're back at the zone of brain overload. And this is why people stopping and coming back tomorrow, stopping again, coming back at the weekend. This is why it's taken them so many different visits to come to the site. And again, I want you to ask yourself about your experience shopping. Take your e-commerce head off. Do these features work? Yes, on occasion they absolutely do. Being able to filter products to my shoe size and see they're in stock or out of stock gives me a great choice. But they can be costly. And do people still make 5 to 10 visits to make a decision? Well, prior to today, I did a little bit of research on LinkedIn. I popped a little survey promoting today's event, and I asked the question. I said, look, as part of my talk, can you tell me what your user habits are like? Small set of people, admittedly, 28, but a broad range of results, to be honest, and I grouped them up. But you can see that, 71% of people are visiting 3 or more times. And the 7+, that could be 10, 12, 15. We'd have to get some really detailed results here. But people are doing coming and forward and backwards to your site, which again, might not be necessarily a bad thing, but it's ultimately wasted traffic. Not the drunk type, not the drunk shoppers that you get, not those kind of wasted people, but you're gaining traffic through SEO, through email, through social media, through paid advertising, all those little bits of effort, all those money that are browsing your website and ultimately not converting. The 2.3% is an average across multiple different industries. And I know it's obviously going to vary for you as an individual. But this is traffic that you're paying for ultimately, either in pay-per-click costs, either in SEO campaigns and refinement, or even just in hosting, even just keeping your website live for 3 months whilst those people are coming forward and back. That's a cost. And in an ideal world, you wouldn't have that. In a perfect world, person visits your website, gets what they want, buys, see you later. So how can we address this kind of one site fits all customer types approach? Well, there are alternatives. And again, there are plenty of big supermarket websites that do a great job, but there are alternative strategies. It's my job to make you think about today. Let's go back to almost the birth of the modern internet as we know it. People want specific answers. That is why Google is one of the biggest companies in the world at the moment. It's why we search. We don't do generic searches. You don't go into House of Fraser and say, can I see your clothes, please? You go in there and ask, where are the white t-shirts? That's what I'm after today. I'm busy. In life, you don't often get the best results from asking generic questions. You ask specific questions because you want a specific answer, because you haven't got time, you need to get on with life. That's why we search. So I'm going to propose to you today that actually reducing choice can actually make your marketing easier. in the first instance. You can see here, search for hats website. Well, Google knows that those first two results, the hats and caps and hat store, they are specific hat companies. So here you go, Adam. Here's a perfect result. You'll get what you want. I keep coming back and using Google because they're producing me the right results. I can buy a hat. I can go off. Okay. The user knows what we are as well. So when I visit that website, okay, I might have a range of hats and we can look detailed into the categorization of that. But it's not being stuffed with loads of other stuff. I know and I'm comfortable with what that website is all about. Back to my favorite word, site tessellates with my intent perfectly. You can help by being specific, you can help with your social media outreach as well. I'm looking at this advert on Instagram. And when I click through, I'm expecting quite a classy, stylish website aimed at the gentleman kind of thing, the businessman, whatever, the fashion guru. I'm certainly not, but I want to be. And some great shoes, the polishes. There's all those kind of refined, gentlemanly kind of things. I'm not distracted by a pink dress or by a bicycle wheel or by a new Dell laptop or whatever this company might otherwise choose to sell. So my chances are that my conversion is going to increase, but I guess we've got to prove that. So one of my good friends, Dawn Anderson, who in herself is an SEO genius queen across the world. She's traveled all the world to do presentations, etc. She did a thesis based off the Barry Schwartz TED Talk. She took it a few stages further. And she started analyzing how and whether or not reducing choice on a website can actually increase conversion. She did a thesis on some jam choices. She presented people with a web page. And ultimately, when she went back and asked them about their experience, you can see it again, 81% of people favor less choice. We lead busy lives. There are so many different options out there. We want to land at a website that gives us a few choices, but it's jam. It's not the be all and end all of my life. It's a product that the jam seller's desperate to sell because they believe in it and love it. The customer doesn't care that much. They want a bit of jam for the toast. Just give me a few, decent options. Let me make the decision. Add to basket and off we pop. And that's certainly what Dawn found in her thesis. That little link there, which is VIOS, I think it is, and that'll take you to a Smart Insights article which summarizes Dawn's thesis. I heartily recommend you have a look into it. So let's go back to our sales curve. We've decided that we're going to reduce choice somewhat, okay? Because conversion has increased, because people are making decisions quicker, which is ultimately why they come to an e-commerce website to make a decision, we're actually seeing that our sales have gone up a little bit. Yes, we've still got to do a bit of paid search. We've still got to do a bit of SEO, but that opportunity cost is now being met that we thought we were doing well with our original sales, but we're actually starting to eke out 15% more, 20% more, 50% more, maybe even double our sales. So I'm sure there are plenty of people on this talk today still thinking, well done, Nick. I've still got 25 different ranges to sell. How can I address this perfectly decent, okay performing, single site fits all approach and do better? How can I triple my sales? Well, the fundamental answer is segmentation. You'll have heard about it for the last 10 years in your email campaigns, etc., etc. Well, the same should apply to websites. I believe, many of the successful businesses I'm going to show you, you should create content specifically for users. If you've not defined some personas of your customers yet, you really need to. It can be very, very detailed. It could be woman in her 40s with 2 kids. It could be guy in his 20s he's working in the city, who's got no kids and has just bought his own flat. You can start to get to certain these ideas of people. They don't have to be exact. You start to build up an impression of who's standing in a queue outside your shop. And you start to work out what their needs are. They might both want to buy a woolly hat, but you need to sell to them in a very different way. So start creating your content, your websites for those particular users. Marion's website here, fantastic lady. She primarily sells dress shoes, but she started to introduce bags, but not too much choice. It's literally handbags and purses, which for a night out or, dressing classy in the day certainly goes well with the shoes that she sells. So she's got a little bit of choice to do cross sells, but she's not going over the top. I believe that website owners, in order to grow, need to start creating content for specific demographics. Start targeting, in this case, skater type people, surfer type people. Again, going back to the hat example, going back to the dress wear, the clothes kind of stuff, hoodies, etc. The hoodies that they want to see on their perfect website are very different to the hoodies that perhaps I want to see when I want something to go walking in the hills or something. I don't know. It's a different type of product, and you could put me off if your main homepage banner looks like this. So if this is your setup now, you've got your warehouse, website, maybe you've got an on-street store and your other reseller things. Great, well done, you're doing good. But maybe you need to start thinking about developing niche websites as well. Maybe you need to start talking one-to-one and tessellating with that specific customer in order to improve your conversion. This is why niche websites work. You can do highly targeted marketing, and you can better tessellate with your content and your design, with the locality as well. And this is the results that start to come through. I can see I'm on 20 minutes now, so I'm going to just wrap things up. Last couple of slides. You can see that if you're starting to talk to people better, you're starting to operate in new sales areas, new sales demographics, and you're in a far better situation. Big question though is, does this work in real life? Well, it does. The Hut Group, I've done this from day one. They have a number of different brands. They have what looks like 160 websites in 35 languages now. They didn't start like that. They started with 3 or 4 brands, very different, all pulling back to the same internal system. And I've seen their internal system very similar on an enterprise level to what Shopit is for general customers. They are 1.6 billion in turnover now. Phenomenal. Took the time, but they've got there. Gear for Music, company that some of you will know about. They did it, sold the same products, but they did it on an international basis. So we're not just talking about demographics of skaters or hat people or whatever, or middle-aged 40-year-old women, whatever. We're talking about international languages. Yes, you've got to pay to get your site translated if you go in for most of Europe, but offering payment options and content that is related to that particular country, prices in that particular currency, you're going to grow your sales. Gear for Music of whatever the maths is, gone 100-fold there in 7 years, then if the maths is right there. We've got a client, Adaka, who've smaller, obviously. They're operating 5 or 6 websites, I think it is now, some direct to customer, some B2B. They've gone through a stage process over the last few years of launching new brands, completely different, selling the same products, or launching a B2B website, and even stepping back into the manufacturing, using their profits to start actually owning more of the percentage of the pie. So it sounds like a nightmare, I get that. Multiple logins, multiple designs, campaigns, costs, huge. This is what we hear all the time. Magento started it off many years ago with a multi-site. WooCommerce does it to an extent. Magento is incredibly expensive to build and to run. WooCommerce is a bit cheaper, but you've still got to pay your developer to build every website pretty much from scratch. There is technology, and yes, Shopit is of course one of those elements of technology where that doesn't necessarily apply. There are systems now. Linworks is another one where you can manage multiple sales channels on a single login. You can manage all those orders. ShipStation's another one from a fulfillment point of view. You're still going to have all those different website builders out there, and again, it's a problem that we solve, but things like that are a lot easier nowadays. Designs, you can put your web designer to speed and say, right, I've got 5 websites. I want you to do me 5 banners today. Here's the message. That's not actually that difficult to do. You're still paying that designer 1 day's wages to crack through all of those. Okay, you've got to market your 5 different websites. But what if the cost per acquisition has dropped significantly because Google and the simple long tail element of your marketing reduces the price so much more, increases your conversion rate so much more, and ultimately maybe it becomes 15 times more effective. Your total spend is actually not that different to running one big website that you're trying to do everything for. Setup costs, high setup costs like Magento are a thing of the past now. SaaS systems allow you to spin these websites out in a matter of days. Stock can be centralized, so you know that you're selling on website number 1, number 2, and it's turning it off on website number 3 until you restock. And likewise with the orders. All these things, there is technology out there now, including ourselves, but there are other big Brightpearl, Linworks, all these kind of companies that do all this stuff. So my ultimate final slide for you is you can actually be everything to everybody. It is possible. Technology is enabling companies to have these options to grow. The world is moving on, and well, I hope I've convinced you, some of you at least, to start considering those as your future growth plans. That's me. And now's the Q&A session. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks ever so much, Adam. That's a fantastic presentation. Great to see somebody who's really at the coalface of e-commerce platforms and marketing, sharing that insight. Hopefully that's useful and insightful for our guests today. So yeah, as Adam said, anybody with any questions that they want to put to Adam, please drop them in the Q&A feature. Look at the bottom, we'll see the Q&A tool, drop the question there, and we'll put them to Adam when we bring it back in after our third speaker. Thanks, Adam. I'm going to invite Kunle Campbell to come and join us in video, please. Good morning, Kunle. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Great
I can't quite hear you.
Spending the morning with us. So for our guests, Kunle is an international speaker on e-commerce and e-commerce marketing. And you also host a 2X e-commerce podcast as well, which many of you will see on LinkedIn. Absolutely fantastic content. And Kunle has interviewed hundreds and hundreds of e-commerce leaders. So it's great to have Kunle kind of on the other side of the camera and the other side of the mic today. I'm going to hand straight over to you. Yeah, I don't think you need any more introduction. I'm going to let you take it away with our guest this morning, Kunle.
Thank you so very much, Leon. It's a pleasure being here. I love workshops like this. I hardly ever, just do stuff like this in the morning, but I'm feeling buzzed right now. I'm feeling really buzzed, and also some really interesting points Adam made in his presentation. About focus on customer personas. I found that really interesting. That's my big takeaway. And I'm going to kickstart today's presentation or my presentation with why building a resilient brand-centered life cycle funnel is the way forward. What I mean by brand-centered is less on an emphasis of chasing demand, which is a thing, by the way. But if you want to build something fast and sustainable in the long term, focus on brand. And I'm just going to break down how some of the big guys are doing it in the industry, particularly US case studies, but they still apply to the UK. And how you can take advantage of this opportunity, essentially. Okay, so this is just a bit about me. I'm a podcast host. I am an advisor to a few e-commerce businesses, mostly mid-market or funded startups looking to aggressively accelerate. I speak quite often, even with COVID. And quite recently, we're about to close on our first e-commerce business acquisition. So I'm an acquisition entrepreneur in the making. I've been covered by a few of these publications. Now, today's talk really has got to do with one, traffic diversification, just making sure that the pinnacle of all of your efforts is on brand name. And I also want to sort of talk about the limitations of just search engine optimization from a point of view of just looking or chasing generic terms and the cap it has, the certain caps. The second thing I'm going to talk about is cost per acquisition, or cost of acquisition customer acquisition cost, which is CAC. Why it's rising. There's a lot of CAC inflation at the moment. Basically, what you spent on AdWords or Facebook last year will be less than what you spent this year, even though you get the same results. That's what I mean. And what to do about it, and what the new media mix actually looks like. And then the third part I want to talk about is what a funnel stack should look like, what your marketing funnel should look like from a top level standpoint. So this talk would benefit CMOs, especially, or CEOs who just want to get that top level, from an e-com or a direct to consumer standpoint. Right. So I just added this this slide this morning, and the reason I added this slide is to kind of give you an idea of where shoppers say is the word, they start their online journey. So actively, a mass majority, it's almost 50-50 now, where almost 50% of consumers, and we have to just accept this, start their journey in the US and the UK on Amazon. It's a given. In this survey by Statistica, it's 37%, which you could see it's head and head with Google. And there is a lot of detail in that in Google. But my talk today is really, how can you sort of capitalize? Because naturally people would look at the bigger bars and say, we have to be up there, we have to be in the bigger ones. But my perspective today is, how do you get on these other two, right? How do you get people to discover your brand on social? And how do you just get people to type out your brand name without thinking? So, if I want to shop in John Lewis, I will type John Lewis. I'll just put John Lewis in the search engines, and the search engines will point me to John Lewis. Which brings me to the question of the first bar, which is 37% here. The second bar, which is 34% there. I would argue that a vast majority of the Google search terms for brand names. So people already know where they're going, and they're going there. There is a massive, long tail. I would not deny that, but that Google is a bit blurred, in regards to, that number. Okay, so I'm going to give you the story of two brands. Now, these are two brands that I've worked with in the past, in the last 1 year. The first brand focus on 3 channels, right? They focus on Google CPC, the AdWords account. If they turn off the AdWords account, they don't get business, basically. And that's the situation with many, many, many of you. And the second thing they're really, really focused on is really organic SEO. We're talking about silos, keyword research. What are the meta tags? Have we redirected this? What kind of traffic are people getting on this category? Looking at so their focus is on that, on those two especially, and a vast majority of their traffic as a result. Which is almost 90%, 87% of their traffic comes from Google. So they're Google dependent business, right? Now, the second brand I closely work with, really sit down with their founder to really, just find out, what growth strategies we could possibly, thrust through. They started as a YouTube channel, right? They have a Facebook community, very active Facebook community, coming to about 20-something thousand. They are active on Instagram, right? And they don't do SEO, right? They don't do SEO. In fact, sometimes I tell, I'll say, this title tag looks a bit odd. Can somebody please change it? They do CPC, but they do, what's it called? They do Facebook advertising, and they do AdWords, right? And essentially their funnel is completely different. So in this case, you have 6 traffic sources, as you could see. They're accounting for 80% of traffic. So when one traffic source is turned off, the net impact on revenue that over that 24-hour period you pull it off could be about 20%, 15, 20%, no more than 20, because they have diversified, their traffic essentially. With their YouTube channel, they just hit 1 million users and 1 million subscribers, sorry, and they're very helpful. It's not a sales type or even it's really it's focused on content, content first approach essentially. This is what we look like. So when you look at it from an AdWords standpoint, and majority of their brand name search, their organic and even CPC is brand name search. So they're creating demand. And that demand is sort of translating essentially to people just typing out their name, right? and as a result, 58% of all their traffic is from the search engines, from Google especially. This is another brand I have. I've actually interviewed the founder. Very, 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 friendly chap. It's called Tidge Honey. They're based out in Chicago. And branded name search in this instance is 28.6%, and non-branded is 71.4%. Now, their strategy, these guys are about 20 million or so in revenue as of 2019. But their strategy essentially is they have a YouTube channel, they've hired they've gone into JV with a YouTube creator. And I think on the last count, there are about 50,000 subscribers on their channel. And they use that almost like a magazine to draw attention to their brand. And then they offboard them off the back of, essentially they offboard them with trials, right? And when you get the trials, you like the product, you then convert their men's grooming product essentially. Now, if you look at their brand name search, it's about 22,000, and they have another sort of term which is hardly ever driving any traffic, which would be like yellow toenails, which doesn't make any sense. But you look at that, organic is the number one source of traffic. And when you look at their social, YouTube is the number one because, they have a YouTube channel. This is Gymshark. It's no one needs any introduction on Gymshark. But when we look at their traffic sources, you think, oh wow, they're bad on SEO. They're really, really, really doing great stuff in SEO. But when you dig beneath the surface with the search, which is on the right hand side, you realize that Gymshark has 823,000 searches per month for just Gymshark. And this is just last year. So what I'm saying in essence is because of all their YouTube and their Instagram, activity through their influencer program, that is generating, awareness, and it's generating search intent to look for the brand. And one of the points I want to make here is direct. Direct again are just people who know you, people who want to transact with you. So if you run a segment, a segment analysis on your analytics platform, and you say, okay, can I just show me a filter of people who've just come direct to your website? Compare the conversion rate of that segment to the general website, and you'd see it will be in double figures in terms of like people who come direct to your website because, they know what they're doing. There's that intent. Movement watches, it's the same story. So for movement watches, you have 46.58% of organic, another 33% in direct. And when you look at the organic, their top organic terms are their brand names. So 90,000 movement watches, MVMT, is about 60,500 movement glasses. So everything is kind of like, brand focused at the end of the day. Same thing with Fashion Nova. These guys are huge. They're Americans. So the US is, answer to boohoo.com, fast fashion. They're focused on social. They're a social first, company. And you look at it again, 37%. Organic, and direct is about 46%. When you look at the organic, it's largely from YouTube, and despite Instagram's inability to link from post, you still see that very healthy 10%, and as against Facebook that allows links from post, which is still the same 10%, and that's because most of their users are on Instagram. So Fashion Nova, 5 million searches, for their brand name alone, and this is not accounting other variations essentially. Glamnetics, these guys grew to $100 million to $50 million, in 1 year. They defied every rule in the book. It was launched by YouTube without funding, by the way. They sell eyelashes and makeup. and it was funded by YouTuber. Basically, she had a huge channel, and she decided to go into. She was doing makeup tutorials, and she started to go into e-commerce, and you could see the results here, just off the back of the fact that social people-to-people influence is driving people to just go to the website and buy. So it's really an audience-first approach. That's the story I'm trying to give to everyone. When I started my career back in 2000 and was 5 or 6, 2005 or 6. The whole thing, the reason I was hired for my first job was for SEO on Google AdWords, and I did a great job at that. Now, what I noticed in the last 5 to 7 years is that content first, audience first is winning the game. And the old way of looking at things is really, how many people are searching for phone cases. Can I chase that niche? That is an old way, because you're going against the grain of Google. You want to get directly to the hearts and minds of your potential audience. So you speak first to your audience via social media. And if you can't do that, you have to use an army of influencers essentially to do it for you, because controlling just the communication and an audience essentially is where it's a secret sauce for most of these new direct-to-consumer e-commerce businesses. I wrote this article back in 2015, and it was a ranty type thing, but it was very data backed. You could search for it. Why SEO alone will not build your business. If you're a fashion e-commerce business, fashion is not functional a lot of the time. And so, it's really an emotional thing, and it's subjective, really. So it's a very, very important piece. It's a very interesting piece, rather. And I gave some stats around, like, maxi dresses and, why your brand name search, if you're known as a place to buy maxi dresses, that has a lot more weight than just, trying to rank for maxi dresses, because when Google catches up on that, if you just optimize your title tags, I'm telling you for a fact, you'll rank. You essentially rank. So if you chase the people and people are coming in, and Google is starting to see that your website has some value, it has a lot of value, where there's a lot of brand name search, then it makes your SEO a lot easier, because Google prefers brands essentially, to just run off the mill, operations. Not going to go through a lot of this, but what I was trying to say here is, like, these are the top 10 results, or at the time when I ran this analysis for maxi dresses. But if you look at the brand name search, they're chasing about 100 to 201,000 search volume for the term maxi dresses. But when you look at it there, that particular brand has 5 million people searching for their brand every day. 1.2 million, 1 million. So the only odd website here is the second one, which with 50,000. Every other website has brand name search of well over 1 million. There's another one which is about 600K, but all of them have over 1 million search volume for their brand name. And so Google just sees value there. That the algorithms know that these are trustworthy sites, where, as demonstrated by people's behaviors, by Google's users' behaviors, by searching for their brands. So it sort of narrows down that sample group of who's going to rank on page one. And that's why it's so important. Again, I keep on saying this, to really optimize for brand name search. One of the things I want to talk about is the fact that your customer acquisition cost is rising. That it's always risen. It's just economics, really, as there are more players, and if the size of the market does not grow as much as the sellers who serve, or the brands that serve the market, you're still just you're all fighting for the same piece essentially, and so that's going to push your customer acquisition cost up. And I really like this graph by Price Intelligence, which is really the CAC payback period. In e-commerce, it's not typically the first sale. The next slide is going to explain why. it is usually the second or sometimes even the third sale, but usually the second sale would seal your CAC if your average order value is less than 50, 50 or 60, 50 or 60 pounds. The moment it's less than 50 pounds, then you're more likely going to make more money, from a second or third purchase. So, what is CAC? It's really the cost of your sales and marketing divided by new customers acquired. So it's really it's usually called an NCPA sometimes, you call it, which is what is the cost of acquiring a new customer? Because you'd always have a percentage of people or customers who are repeat customers. So you don't want to factor that into your advertising cost. You really want to look at the first time customers. So this is an understanding of profits and loss, really. So this is purchase number one. AOV here is $100 or £100. Your CAC on, say, Facebook and Instagram, 50 pounds. You pay tax of £15. Your cost of goods is 30. That means your gross profit really is 70% here. But your variable cost, you're paying your staff, warehousing, all of that stuff is about £10. What you have left, you're -5, right? Without AOV. Now, with the second purchase, it starts to get really, really, really interesting in the sense that, sorry, just need to pull this down and pull that down and get back to it. So your second purchase is really interesting. So the AOV, again, we're assuming is another £100. You're not paying for CAC anymore. You're essentially, if you're doing things right, you're posting regularly, meaningful content on social media. You'll have email automation flows, just working in the background. People hear from you very often, or as often. The cadence is there, which means your CAC is practically zero. You still have your variable cost, you still have your cost of goods, you still have your tax and shipping. Then you're into profitability of 50. So you spent what, you spent about, you spent, let me just do the real math, just over 150 pounds to make, 50 pounds. But yeah, that's the CAC. And it's very important to understand that, a lot of your profitability is going to come from your second purchase, just due to high rising CAC. This is some more data. This is RevealBot. They're an automation platform for Facebook advertising, and again, CPMs on Facebook. That was September 2020. On the left, and you could just see. So this is the one is CPM and the other is CPC. You just see January, when things are really slow, and then as we're ramping up towards Q4, things just go up. And that was 2020. I should have 2019 results actually, but again, there is CPC inflation. This is from RevealBot again. I've just put in cost per conversions. So that's April 2020 on the left, and that's April 2021 on the right. Now, that's insane, as in that's $10.70 and that's $17.79. There is a significant jump up there. That's about 70% in terms of your conversion cost, and that's why it's so important that the moment you have acquired a customer, you set the motion in place to ensuring that they love, trust you, so that they can make a subsequent purchase. And if your products don't necessarily allow that at the moment, then you should try and get a referral from that customer, which is more difficult because they're now intermediary. But if that is the case, then start to re-engineer your product offering to ensure that there is a follow-on product that has a bit of replenishability, in it. So you have that long-term commercial relationship with that particular customer moving on, because just the CAC is going up. And one of the ways to sort of go against CAC is putting out content, which I'm going to show you about, which I'm going to teach you about. So what I'm saying with the best-in-class e-commerce businesses is they are they're not necessarily relying on paid 100%, because they're building content and building audiences outside of that within the ecosystem in the organic front. And so when people see their brand for the first time, the click-through rates are much higher, with the advertising. This is nuanced, obviously, because there are many other, factors such as the creative quality in the first place. But if, users are already aware of your brand via social, by organic, through the content you're creating, and you're actually even acquiring customers via those channels, they will not be significant as compared to paid. You just reduce your customer acquisition cost longer term. Now, this is an audience first approach to marketing, I call it. This is the Tidge Hanley, brand. They pretty much hired one person who's accountable for managing this particular channel. So it doesn't have to always be your founder. You could find a charismatic creator who wants to sort of pair up with you, or you could build out an influencer marketing campaign. But the key thing really is you need, as an e-commerce business today, you need a community manager. You're building a community, you're managing a community, you're managing an audience. So, just if you don't have that now in your operations, you're really just cutting yourself short, really. Okay, so what do we do? You want to increase your AOV, obviously. You want to increase the frequency in which people purchase from you, and most first-time purchases obviously are not profitable. So that's what it means to really maximize your lifetime value. Okay, so what does a social advertising focused funnel really look like? A lot of the time, especially over the last 5 years with Facebook being what it is, a lot of people will buy. So their top of funnel traffic will be Facebook interest, lookalike audiences, all of that stuff. They're focusing on Facebook, or even AdWords, or running AdWords there, and then they have their mid funnel retargeting platform, because not everybody will respond immediately. Some will click through, some will just watch a video. You have retargeting, retargeting focused on each of those segments of the audience you're targeting, that have responded. So you try and retarget them. And then your bottom of the funnel really is you get them through to the product page, and then they purchase, eventually. That's kind of like what a social advertising funnel looks like. And somewhere in between, you could retarget ads, and you create a loop. Now, this worked perfectly 3 years ago. This worked well 4 years ago. This worked well even 2 years ago. It worked well, fairly well, if your average order value was the right point. But it's starting to really not work, especially with the ATT, the iOS issue, the death of the third-party cookie. A lot of data. There's a fight, there's a battle right now for customer data, and this battle is not us small guys, against the big guys. This is Apple on the one hand, and the rest of the tech industry. Basically, Apple is claiming it wants privacy, and so it's affecting the way we have access to customers. And it's so important to now own your customer relationship, essentially. And so this model is flawed, where you're trying to grow your business through just advertising. It is 100% flawed. Where it starts to get interesting is when you start to do the one-to-one, marketing communication with them, with lifecycle marketing, but still just relying on advertising top of the funnel. And I have worked with businesses where their marketing leadership believed in this model, and they fell flat on their faces, because they were not looking at the potential sales they were getting. They're looking more at the potential sales they were going to get, rather than the people, the audience, actually building a relationship with the audience, in that respect. So what is the life cycle marketing oriented way to advertising? Well, what I'm saying in a sense is, at the top of the funnel, you focus on branded traffic. So you create content that drives top of funnel traffic to establish long-term relationships with content creators and influencers. So in a way where you want people to know who you are, you want people to know what you stand for. You want people to know your ethos. You want people to know the products you sell through demonstrations on, via video and images, or, and partnerships with influencers and content creators, largely on TikTok, Instagram. So you build that momentum. Now, I gave the example of Instagram and TikTok because, obviously that's where a lot of things are going on now. But for the younger generation, if you're selling to an older generation, understand who you're selling to, and, kind of understand where they engage most, online, and be active there. So if it's, 30 something year old women who happen to be mothers, then Pinterest might be a very, very strong channel for you. If it's, 50 plus, people, then Facebook might be, a stronger, channel. You need to look for where they are and start to participate from a content serving standpoint, regardless, of where they are. Even if it means you're going offline, even if this means going offline, let's say you're trying to target 60 plus, where the 60 plus people hang out, it doesn't necessarily mean that they always hang out online, might hang out somewhere, but you need to serve in that medium, in the potential as a content creator. You need to sort of figure out how you're going to be an authority, in content in that subject, and stand right in front of them. When you start to do that top of the funnel, things start to get easier further down with your paid advertising, because you're more familiar as a brand. And this is, what a lot of these brands are doing, the examples I gave you in the first place. So what goes top of funnel? What does, top of funnel traffic look like? There's user generated content, influencer generated content, in-house generated content. It's really about building, brand building and attention. It's really how you're going to get attention at the top of the funnel first. So if you don't have a strategy for that, you need to start building one out. And then create content that drives top of funnel traffic and establish long-term relationship. That's what we said. And these are the key channels from an online perspective. Influencer, led brand, an army of influencers, a community led by content, so content creates community. That's something to bear in mind. If you create content, you attract a certain, whatever content you create attracts, right? And if you create content with the right distribution channels, that is, if you create content and it speaks to a certain person, you're attracting that type of person. So it's really creating community through content, and then above the line marketing, trying direct mail, trying celeb endorsements, so long as it's profitable, just trying to get your brand there. I remember Pimlico plumbers, the posh plumbers, in Chelsea. The one thing they have mastered essentially beyond their operations has been getting attention, whether it's on the Daily Mail or what have you, they always get attention. It's really an attention game here. So one other thing I noticed as a podcaster is how conservative us as Brits are as compared to the States in terms of just trying to get attention. So it takes me it takes me a lot less. Basically, I have a lot less effort trying to get a US guest on my podcast than it is in the UK. It's cultural, but really this game is about attention, just forward facing. It's really down to attention. So your mid funnel then will be your advertising, strategy. Your performance marketing essentially should be your mid funnel, and that's where you run the ads. A lot of the activities you've done above the funnel will generate traffic, and that could be retargeted. So all of a sudden, rather than you targeting really cold audiences, you've already fed the algorithm, whether it's Facebook or Google retargeting, whatever you're doing, you already fed, the algorithm with traffic, with a traffic sample that makes the bots actually, work better. The algo work much better to your favor because you've worked first rather than expecting them to do the magic, as most brands would expect. And then lifecycle marketing, I cannot emphasize this enough. Your email, your SMS as a notification tool, other messaging platforms, whether it's WhatsApp or Messenger, mail, direct mail, still hugely powerful. Trying to create a direct relationship with your customers. And the strongest, most powerful are really email and SMS, because it's a two-way stream, essentially. Right. So what does it look like? If you're a £1 million company, you're probably relying on a paid channel or a marketplace or what have you. You're essentially just renting space, because if you turn off the ads, it's crickets, right? Now, what you want to do is you want to have a voice in the market. You want to be a content creator. This is just a summary of what I'm saying. And so you focus on retention, and with retention, it's all SMS, email, and trying to get that direct relationship. What channels actually create that direct relationship without going on a platform to buy advertising or to use any platform. You're really using your email because you have customer data. Now, the fourth is when you become a movement, which is a Gymshark league where there's a lot of word of mouth. So the word of mouth really is amplified through social, just due to how just due to social media, really, essentially, just the exponential reach of social, right? The contagious reach of social. Also, what I was trying to look for. So it's really that, and that's when you become a movement. When there is massive word of mouth, but you need to take these steps. And I know a lot of you might be still be on page, trying to figure out SEO, but you need to start creating content, not for SEO purposes, but to get mindshare, to get mindshare, to get the hearts and minds of people. That's why Coca-Cola is what it is today. Right. So what does the marketing stack look like? This is my final slide. The marketing stack is built. You have to have a great product, at the bottom line. Even if it's a collection of products, whatever, you have to have a distinctive advantage in the market through products. And that is the baseline. If you, really want to get to that, legendary status of 100 million pounds. So vertical integration might be important. You should be innovative. First to market is hugely important. Next is mass influencer product seeding. So your product is great. Your product is great. Your product can't just be good. Your product is great. Start seeding. Start giving influencers that can influence your target market, your target persona, free gifts. Just give it to them with zero expectation of, and I'm not talking about massive influence, I'm talking about micro influencers. Just give it to them with zero expectation, right? And what you find is with the law of reciprocity, you'd find that they will want to reciprocate that gesture, that kind gesture, by sharing content, especially if the product is good. If the product is good, it means that they could create content that is useful to their audience anyway. So it's a win-win, right? In that respect, you want to get, the target really is 30 to 40% of all of the products you've sent for free to turn up as content. Then you get their permission to repost. Now, when you repost their content, you could repost it through your performance marketing, and you could repost it on your organic. But once you have those two at the base, performance marketing starts to become easier. So you have that stack there, which really I'm very much skewed to social advertising. I just feel it's much more stronger, longer term. But social search, whatever. The key thing is like your paid media stack can come above, that, because the market has tested, your product through the influencers anyway. And the next is really content marketing. Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have an active, Instagram channel? Do you own a hashtag, on Twitter? You need to start to create content that's distributed effectively through and consistently through social. And then the third is product launches. So if you started with one product, then you want to sort of have a cadence of, when you'd launch, additional products to just expand, your offering or a category, and make sure that each product connects with the other. So if you launch a shaving brand, for instance, maybe a shaving stick, a single razor shaving stick, the next obvious step would be How are we going to, get shaving cream, something like that, something that relates, or brushes, or what have you, something that relates to your previous products. And the other stack really is lifecycle marketing. So that one-to-one medium towards communicating with your customers is hugely important. And number one is community. This is all about growing your community. If I ask you what's your total combined, social reach, do you have that answer to hand? And that's it, folks. That really is it. This is the marketing stack for profitable, and the scalable growth. Thank you.
Kunle, thank you very, very much for that super presentation. I think that's had our audience absolutely great. Lots and lots of topics in there that I think are going to create a lot of food for thought for our e-commerce marketers today. So thanks ever so much. Those of you that have questions for Kunle, I'm sure there's a lot. Drop them in the Q&A feature. We'd love to pose these to Kunle after our next speaker. So I'm delighted now to ask Lisa Appleby to join us. Good morning, Lisa.
Hi, how are
thanks
you?
Thanks for joining us, Lisa. Lisa is an optimization consultant, luckily here part of the team at Door4. So we're proud to have Lisa as a colleague. And this morning, Lisa is going to be talking to us about customer intent and mapping campaigns to meet that intent. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Lisa, and I'm going to give you the stage.
Let's go ahead. So I've got some big shoes to follow there, following on from Adam and Kunle's presentations, but let's jump in, shall we? I'll just get this on present. Right, so today we're going to be talking about leveraging user intent to boost organic performance. So before we begin, a little bit about me. So I'm Lisa, and I'm an optimization consultant here at Door4. So I look after all things SEO within the performance team. So today we're going to be discussing exactly what search intent is, what it means for SEO, and we'll take a look at some best practices and some tried and tested tips that have helped me drive performance and increase sales for clients I've worked with over the years. So let's jump in. What is user intent and why is it important? So user intent, or search intent as it's also known, is the main goal or intention that a user has when they're entering a query into a search engine. So satisfying search or user intent is Google's ultimate goal. 68% of all online experiences start with a search engine, and providing results is what they do. So they want to be good at it, and they want to provide accurate results every time. And this is part of the reason why intent has become so pivotal to organic search over the last couple of years. But things haven't always been like this. In 2019, BERT came along and changed everything, really. So BERT is an update that's by Google, designed specifically to improve the way that Google understands search queries by natural language processing. So it analyzes the queries rather than the web pages. So Google's desire to provide these hyper-relevant results is what's led to SEOs, professional and otherwise. Basically, we've needed to up our game and understand exactly how our users are searching and not just what they're searching for. So put simply, if your page, post, image, whatever it is, matches the user intent, then it's going to rank well. So we can split intent down quite crudely into 4 different categories, which are informational, navigational, commercial, and transactional. So informational intent, quite simply, can be defined as question-based searches. So things like who, where, what, when, why. And each of those words, the who, when, what, where, why words, they are something we call modifiers. So these are contextual words that go before or after a keyword to create the search term, and they're there specifically to define the intent of the query. So some common informational queries include things like how to repair car paint, or what is scratch and scuff remover. And so, sorry, just bear with me, I've lost my, I can't seem to click back on my presentation. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, so informational intent. These are the question question searches. So like I said, some examples of informational intent are things like how to repair car paint, or what is scratch and scuff remover. And with these kind of queries, the user is trying to find something out. They're looking for an answer to a specific question. And then we move on to navigational. So these kind of queries are related to a specific site or a brand usually. So the user knows where they want to go and they expect to be taken there without any fuss or hassle. So examples of these kind of queries might be Facebook login or door 4 blog. Really common examples of navigational intent there. And entering a query like this is often just quicker and easier than entering the URL, or specifically useful when the user doesn't actually know the URL of the page they require. So then we move on to commercial. So the modifiers used for intent searches like this are things like best, review, compare. So commercial intent is only actually relevant to transactional searches, which I'll touch upon next, but I like to include them because if you're selling online, it's obviously very important. So common commercial intent inquiries include things like best air fryer or air fryer reviews. And it's fair to assume at this point that the intention to buy something is there. The user's just not at the purchase stage yet. And then we move over to transactional. So modifiers used for these kind of queries are words like buy, download, purchase, etc. So these users, they're looking to complete a purchase. They're ready to part with their cash, and they should be directed to pages that allow them to do just that without any hassle at all. So some examples of typical transactional queries include things like buy dog food online or best price for dog food online. Okay, so now we've just had a brief run through of the types of intent. We're going to look at some of the best ways you can determine exactly what your users are looking for. So how do we determine intent? First things first, analyze the Serbs. The Serbs is the search engine results page. So regardless of who you think your competitors are, the most important thing to find out is who you're competing with for your target keywords or phrases. So your next door neighbour might be your competitor on the high street, but it's not the same if we're talking about the digital space. So to succeed online, you need to understand exactly who you're fighting for that valuable Google real estate. Who is it that you're trying to beat off the top spot for your chosen key terms? So once you've, once you've established that, you need to look at things like, how is this content formatted? Is it a product page? Is it a blog? What is ranking in the top spots for those queries that you're targeting? What tone of voice are they using? So what's included and what do you think that's missing? Looking at what, so when we talk about analysing the SERPs, I'd suggest always looking at the top 10. But if you look specifically at what's in positions 1 to 3, that's going to give you a fantastic base to build your #1 ranking content from. Like, half the job's already done for you. All you need to do is produce a better piece of content for that result. Mining your own data. So perhaps the most back to basics step within this whole presentation is to mine your own data. So your users are providing you with absolutely invaluable insights every time they search for you, every time they interact with your site. Whatever they do that relates to the site is recorded. And while Google doesn't always provide us with every bit of data that we'd like, what we do have is more than enough to make informed decisions and assumptions around user behavior. So the free analytics tools that we use every day are undoubtedly some of the most powerful weapons in our arsenals as digital marketers. And Google Analytics, sorry, and Search Console gather data that can't be found anywhere else. I mean, we could only dream of getting hold of our competitors' analytics and Search Console. And the reason behind that is because of how valuable that data is. So most businesses or business owners don't realize that they're sitting on an absolute gold mine of information that holds the key to their organic success. So for example, to investigate queries, will show you exactly what people are searching for to find your site, as well as how many clicks and impressions each of those queries receive, meaning that with that information, you can fine-tune your strategy to precisely match the intent of the real people who are coming across your site in the SERPs. Google Analytics, another great tool, perfect for analysing landing page behaviour, as well as the journey taken by visitors to your site, which will allow you obviously to determine where what pages customers land on, at which point they left your site. So structured data. So not only can the type of structured data you implement directly address intent to an extent, you know, we all know that rich results help your site cut through the noise and stand out within the Serbs. So structured data, or schema markup, refers to a set of data within the page that fits a format or a structure, hence the name. So this gives Google confidence that the information they're delivering to answers to users is accurate. And we all know that accurate results equal a high click-through rate. Formatting data in this way is also really useful because it allows Google to display it in a way that highlights it and makes the information more digestible for the end user. There are hundreds of different types of schemas, so identifying the right ones can be tricky, but if done correctly, you can see huge gains from this. Research keyword modifiers. So I touched on modifiers briefly earlier, and it's important to note that simply knowing the terms which fit which in each of the intent buckets is not enough. So researching the appropriate modifiers for your chosen term is crucial for success, and often what catches a lot of sites out. So a keyword research tool like Ahrefs, for example, will allow you to search for a keyword and modify your search to include specified modifiers. So that will provide you with a whole wealth of information about the modifiers, including things like search volume, SERP results, clicks, cost per click value, and all sorts of useful information that will help you determine the intent of your keywords. So what's next? Now we've determined intent, what do we do about it? So identify content gaps. Well, I spoke briefly earlier about examining the SERPs to find out exactly what kind of content is pulling in those #1 rankings. An equally important part of SERP analysis is identifying what is missing from the results. It's quite simple, really. You need to give the people what they want. So identifying and exploiting those gaps in the market by adapting your content to provide a more relevant intent matching result for that specific query should in theory create a rankings boost. So create content specifically around intent. So following on from our last slide, if your current content doesn't match the intent of any term that you're targeting, then create something new. A key benefit of that, obviously starting from scratch, is that you can create bespoke content aimed specifically at your target queries and their intent, rather than just shoehorning something into a piece of content that doesn't always fit perfectly. The SERP analysis will have identified these top ranking search results for you. So that'll help you easily identify what's missing for that result and what you need to create for it. So review your metadata. Your title tag and meta description is usually the first thing users will see of your business when you appear in the SERPs. And while meta descriptions aren't as important as page titles in terms of keywords, they're a huge player when it comes to click-through rate. So use of appropriate modifiers in your metadata, including target key terms and CTAs, will make sure that searches are appropriately directed, and that's going to have a positive impact on things like your bounce rate, as well as the amount of time that users spend on your site. So some key points to remember here. Always ensure that you fully understand the intent before optimizing the content. While this is a key point, it's always important to remember that if down the line you realize that maybe the intent for something that you had is wrong, you can go back and change it. But obviously you want to always aim to be bang on the money with the intent before you start. Manually analyzing the SERPs. So analyze the SERPs and analyze them again. Intent, like pretty much everything else in our industry, is always changing. In fact, it was the Great Intent Survey of 2020, which was done by Surfer SEO, revealed that in a year, 12% of their keywords changed intent. So it's not a one-time job and you get to leave it be again. It's something that needs revisiting constantly over and over again to make sure that that intent matching keeps up. Your own data is a secret weapon. So while obviously analysing what others are doing is one of the core elements of creating a search intent-led strategy, the one thing that you have that no one else does is your own data, and you need to use it. And then last but certainly not least, this is essential. So optimizing for search intent is not an optional practice. If you ignore it, your organic strategy will fail. Maybe not now, but it will. Google's far too advanced these days to just be satisfied with simple keywords and basic content. So yeah, make sure you match that intent. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that, Lisa. Fantastic presentation. I'm going to invite our other speakers back in now. I'm going to invite Kunle and Adam to join us back in video. I'll just wait for Adam. Thanks, Kunle. Hi again, Adam. Thanks to you all for 3 fantastic presentations. It's kept everybody enthralled. I think we've kept almost all of our guests online throughout. I've got a few questions, so I'm going to I'll start with Lisa, if that's okay. A question that's come in from Social Channel. What would you do if you come across a keyword or a phrase that spans multiple intents? We've talked about matching intents. What about keywords and phrases that actually match multiple intents?
Yeah, so in this case, you need to make sure that you're producing the piece of content means that you need to go hard after one intent, basically. Make it so that Google could never possibly mistake what you mean. Like, just go in with the intent, stick to one line, and you should be golden.
Super, thanks for that. I've got a question for Adam that's come in. So for those of us that are running multiple brand websites, you know, what are the cost implications for retailers running multiple websites? How does it work in terms of cost?
Hopefully my audio is okay, and my video tends to slow down sometimes. So there are 3 major costs, I think, with running any e-commerce business. There's the back-end logistics, the warehousing, and the sourcing. There's obviously the design and build setup, and then there's the marketing costs. Now, the great thing about the multi-site strategy is the warehousing costs don't really change. You know, the fulfillment's the same. It's actually going up as you're gaining income. Your design and build, that's what the SaaS world, and like I say, certainly Shopit, there are other ones out there as well, that is getting crunched down massively. You can spin out templated websites for very focused demographics quite easily for literally hundreds of pounds, not thousands of pounds. The big cost really is in the marketing. But as hopefully my presentation kind of alluded to, if you're spending 50 grand on your marketing for one website to try and eke out all those tiny elements of the user intent that Lisa talks about and the specific demographics that Kunle talks about, that is actually spread out across a number of websites because your cost per acquisition is so much lower. So, if anything, the costs are getting less than the previous Magento scenario.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks, Aaron. And because we're nothing other than democratic on Decoding Digital, the last question for Kunle, I've got some feedback there. Should all brands take an audience-first approach to marketing?
Certainly, most brands. I'm getting feedback too, but yeah, I think the answer, my answer is yes. All brands should. Not all brands will, but all brands should, take an audience, first approach. And it is really trying to understand your customers better, create personas, understand where those personas are more spending their time at scale, and be there by being useful. A lot of people think content, in terms of like building content for audiences means writing blog posts. It is far from that. Although blog post is in the or should be in the mix, the key thing here is how do I create assets that people can relate with emotionally, really, really quickly. And photographs, images it can be defined as content, as well as video. So really trying to think about that way in terms of like getting assets to attract audiences. And I think all brands should, not all brands would though.
Superb, thank you, Kunle. So I'm going to wrap up there in terms of the content. So I'm going to give a massive thank you to Kunle, Adam, and Lisa for joining us this morning for our July Decoding Digital. Our next event is on Friday, the 10th of September, where we welcome everybody to come and join us again. If any of our audience have any ideas for other speakers or topics they'd like us to cover, then we'd love to hear it. But for now, that's all. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the football, those of you that have gone on Sunday, that have got interest, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much.
Bye.